Welcome to What the Flick, everybody. Night of, season finale, episode 8, Call of the Wild. Thank goodness we went an hour 38. Like, the weird thing is they don't even tell you.
No.
Like, I mean, nothing, they weren't.
That's like a movie.
Right, that's right. It's like old school. Like,
this is the Return of the Jedi.
They don't give you any information about this. Like a special 100-minute finale of, none of that. But I kept, pausing it and being like, I think this is going to go on. Like, especially at like minute 50, you're like, they're not done in 10 minutes. That cannot happen.
Oh, see, I'm on TiVo, so it immediately hit the bar at the bottom telling me what I'm in for.
Right, so. But I have to hit pause to see that bar.
Yeah, so I knew it was going to be an hour and 45 before I started watching it. And my first reaction to that was, oh, thanks God.
Right, totally.
Thanks God. For a number of reasons. One,
we have a lot of ground to cover here.
Yeah, I loved this whole series so much. Looking forward to the last episode, but like a little worried that they're not going to be able to have enough time to finish it. So when I saw hour and 45 on my DVR, I thought, oh, good. At least they took their time with this, and they weren't like, okay, 53 minutes, and we wrap this thing up, and we're out of here. And I think upon watching the whole hour and 38 of the actual show, well, let me just skip to the end. Nailed it.
All right, so let's get it. Let's talk about... let's talk about the end first, because we had the last little moment that we get in the show is the cat walking across, right? You're wondering, is he going to get the cat? He's seen the commercial.
Right.
He didn't say goodbye to the cat there. There's no way. I don't need more headroom. He didn't, and then we get the cat walking across the screen, which, if you'll remember, was how episode 1 concluded. And it only stuck in me because in talking about it, someone laughed at me because when the father goes out, it's like the father doesn't forget that his son's been arrested. His father focuses on the cab, not because he's a bad father, but because that's a moment of jarring reality that this is real. My God, the cab is gone. So therefore, everything else they told me is also true.
Right.
Yes.
And a cat walks across the street as he's staring at the empty parking space. So there was, we had, and I thought at the time, accident and they left it in, or did a handler release the cat? Right?
Cat wrangler.
And now I'm pretty sure a wrangler released the cat.
Yeah. So I was wondering throughout the whole series, like the significance of the cat, other than what I'll call the semi-obvious, which is emotional connection and how that tells the story of John Turturro's character, etc. But it wasn't just about John Turturro, because the cat's mingling in the house, and I thought that was somehow going to be related to solving the case. And like you say, there's a cat across the street in a completely separate situation. And I think I solved it. It's because it's referencing the cat burglar who did it. I'm kidding.
I think the cat. I think the cat serves the same purpose as the eczema. We've been talking about, like, what's the point of the eczema? Why bother with the eczema? And I think that it's a human touch for the Stone character, not just his sort of emotional relationship with this cat and his inability to get rid of the cat, even though he's super allergic. But I think the fact that he's dealing with these allergies and he's dealing with the skin condition and all this stuff, it's kind of this human touchstone that happens where if you are a lawyer handling a big murder case, you also, one of the things that was so great in People versus OJ, like Marcia Clark is fending off the media and spending hours and hours researching this case, and she still has to, like, make dinner for her kids.
Right.
Like, life doesn't just stop.
Yeah, that's, okay, so all those things are right, but mostly you guys are wrong. Would you like to give a wrong answer, too, before I give the right answer?
No, fine, go ahead.
John McLaughlin is dead, but we have Ben Mankiewicz.
The last thing that Stone says before he leaves is basically, don't worry, it'll be all right, to his random client calling. And of course we know, no, it won't. It will not be all right. Nas is not all right. Nas's mother's not all right. Nas's whole family is not all right. Nobody's all right. And he didn't save anybody. He kept Nas out of prison. It's a high point of his career, right? But Nas is in terrible shape. He is buying drugs. He hates his mom. He's got major work to do to repair that relationship. His community fears him and mistrusts him. But what Turturro can do is save a cat. Like, it is the thing that he was able to actually do. It's one thing that he was like, okay, I got this.
I actually think that goes to the whole theme of the show, which is, life is screwed, right? Life is super, super hard. But our saving grace is that is the things that we do that matter. Saving this guy's life, saving that cat. And I can empathize with this. I feel this. Like, at least I did that.
Right, sure.
Right.
No, sorry, go ahead.
I'm actually really surprised at the amount of closure that the show gave us, because I knew it was such a scathing, look at the system and how it works and the police and the lawyers. But we got a shocking number of happy endings as far as the interweaving storylines are concerned.
Yeah, the idea that
Box
that
is
Box
redeemed,
and
the ADA is
that they're going to
redeemed.
go after the actual perp is like,
cat
oh, I didn't think
lives.
we were going to get that much from them.
We got conclusions, which I think is interesting because but I don't think those endings were happy for anyone. They're not going to convict that guy. They have less to go on than they had with Nas, and the defense's argument of, you tried a guy and the jury was 6-6 on another suspect. That's the most reasonable doubt in the history of mankind. You cannot convict the guy who did it. You can't. I could get him off.
I thought the choice of The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face at the end was an interesting song because both Stone and Daryl, in prison, Michael K. Williams, Freddy, talk about seeing Nas's innocence and how it just radiated out of him, and how it was so unusual for people who spend their entire lives surrounded by actual criminals who actually are guilty. And so that theme song could almost apply to either one of them, talking about their encounter with this guy. But unfortunately, this guy, having gone through everything that's happened, is now, as you say, a mess. He's a drug addict, and he's got all these broken family relationships and all this other stuff that he's got to now contend with in his life. Yes, he didn't go to jail. He got off on a mistrial basically, but that's it. Everything else is a disaster.
But we'll get to Shandra in a second because that's obviously a key plot point for her, and she certainly did not end well for her. And Box is back. I mean, Stone is back taking these calls, living alone, feeling sad, watching cat videos on and procedurals. And cat commercials.
Yeah, those depressing ASPCA videos.
Right. So he is low. Nothing changed for him. Nas we don't know what's going to happen, but he might be a criminal. He's a murderer. I mean, he's a murderer. He participated in a murder, right? Distracting the guard while the guy got his neck cut.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, he's a killer. He didn't commit that murder, but he is
he's an accomplice.
He's a murderer. To me, I have a slight problem with you're robbing a bank, you don't know the guy you're with had a gun and he kills somebody, and you were like, wait, you weren't supposed to shoot anybody. I might have a tough time sending that guy to prison for life. Distract the guard while I cut this guy's throat. No, I got you for first. I got you for first degree murder on that one. So, he's a callous. We don't know. I mean, he might Nas. If the continuation of the story had Nas dead at 27 of a drug overdose, that would seem consistent with where he might be.
Anybody else think he wasn't going to make it out of the prison alive?
Yeah,
that was the tensest scene for really no reason.
My wife. Oh, something bad's going to happen. Something bad. I'm like, no, it's not. Stop saying that. That just makes it more likely that something's going to happen.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. What she says at that moment does affect the taping months ago.
Yeah.
So that's why actually I think this slight disagreement about whether it was happy endings or not is why I absolutely loved this show. I thought the ending was also near perfect because it gave you enough redemption. Like, well, they're going to give it a good college try on the real killer, right?
Right.
And so thank God for that. He did get off. Thank God for that. The cat is saved. Thank God for that. But nothing is all right.
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 All right.
I mean, if they had given you a BS happy ending on the mom or Nas or Chandra.
Stone's ex-wife comes back.
Yeah. I was like, please don't do that, right?
Yeah. Even the closures aren't like closures.
That's right.
Yeah. And so it was just the right mix.
It's false hope.
It's a stopping point without being the stopping point, I think.
Because if we, the audience, hadn't gotten that scene with Box and the legal advisor in the casino, if we had never had oh, so that's who did it moment, because the jury didn't get that, Nas
True,
didn't get that.
Well, it didn't come up in the trial because Shandra and Stone didn't have it either.
Right,
Box
but if we hadn't have gotten that, the ending would have been totally different. We would have did Nas do it? Didn't he? Was it Dwayne? There's no compelling argument there. And I mean, it's nice that they gave it to us, but I didn't think the show was gonna.
Yeah, it's not, and also they managed to give it to us without turning it into a whodunit. Everyone who watched the show certainly asked whodunit, but it wasn't their first question. It was never the thing we most wanted to know.
Well,
yeah, but and I would have been frustrated because maybe I'm not a professional film guy, and I think that was going to say you guys, are like you like those. My sense is generally professional film critics like nebulous endings. Okay, I do not. Okay, I despise them. But this was perfect because it was not so nebulous that you're like, it's your call. I don't know what happened, right? It was super clear, but yet.
It doesn't end with the cops arresting the bank guy.
Yes, and it doesn't end with a nice bow tie or a bow at the end. It says, this was really messed up, and they're not going to recover from it.
Right.
Right.
The reverberations will continue.
Yeah, it's not a movie where everything works out at the end. But hey, at least you know what happened, and at least it wasn't a grotesque injustice, and you could sleep at night.
Right. And the scumbag stepfather does get the house. And he
Yeah,
will.
that's right.
And the trust fund.
Right? It worked out for him. Like he can stop working at the gym, hitting on the women. Like enough.
Yeah, he's done. He
You're
won.
good. You got it. You won.
Yeah.
Well, for all the people who asked me on Twitter who I thought did it, this is precisely why I never pick, because I'm always wrong.
Yeah,
and people were sending me these lengthy treatises on why it was Stone all along. It's like, well, you're wrong.
It was Stone. That's awesome.
God, I would have been so angry if that guy's explanation was like word for word, right? Because I read that whole thing.
Okay, so I've got to now say what I thought Ben would bring up. So halfway through the series, I call Ben. I'm like, I got it. Like I don't want to ruin it for you.
This is a verbatim copy. She's like, I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to tell you because I don't want to ruin it.
Because I'm so sure that I'm right, right? That me explaining it to you, you're going to go like, oh, God damn it, you were right, right? So I was positive that it was the stepdad. And I had concocted a whole story. And this was, but to be fair to me, before it became...
Someone has to be.
Let's be fair.
Before it became clear that he was one of the primary suspects, right?
Most people who are wrong about something are wrong because they don't have enough information. They can't go back later and go, to be fair to me, I didn't have enough information.
Yeah.
Whatever. That women can't lead Fortune 500 companies. I just didn't have enough information.
No. Okay, I'm actually saying kind of the opposite. Like, I didn't have enough info, and I knew that he was, in my mind, a prime suspect. So, like, kudos to me for putting him in that category. Okay. And then if I had known that they were going to play him up,
of course he was a suspect.
Okay, and if I had known that they were going to play him up as such a primary suspect, I wouldn't have thought it was him. You see what I'm saying?
You were slightly ahead of the curve.
Okay, but totally wrong. Okay, fine, totally wrong. But that's like so. But the reason I brought up all this, other than the fact that it's funny how wrong I was, is that I felt conflicted about the real killer, right? Because they never showed him before. Like, I mean, they did briefly, the funeral fight, and then.
But it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and so the killer comes out of nowhere, and you feel like, well, it was at least a third of a whodunit, and you didn't really give us a chance to figure out who done it, right?
Well,
but that wasn't the
Had we
point,
seen
though.
that
This
picture
isn't like an
before?
Agatha Christie thing.
Have we?
Had we seen that picture on the beach before that Box had?
No.
No.
Like, was that in
No,
a scene?
that was
and, like,
new.
I could have picked
And
up
I
on
don't
it,
know.
but
And I don't
didn't.
know that we'd ever seen the footage of her turning around like she was clearly getting away from somebody.
Those are a couple of the significant flaws, and I think it's for a show that strived for so much, and clearly, if Making a Murderer was 13 episodes, I mean, this obviously had 13 episodes in it, and they went with 8. So they were ambitious, deserve credit. I give them an A, but they have some things that were wrong, and in ambition, one of them was the timeline. I think they should have given us a timeline. I mean, this was in many ways a procedural. One thing Law and Order does is let you know when things are happening.
chyrons, yeah.
Would have really helped for Naz's progression or descent into depravity, because many of us, I think, thought it was really quick. I get it. We keep having to tell ourselves this
He
is
was in
what
there for
Rikers
months.
does. But you'd say, okay, this must be months later. This happened over 8 months. It didn't happen over 8 weeks, right? But it wouldn't have killed us to just have a couple of June 2014, October 2014.
Or even just a line of dialogue, like, I've been here for 6 months and I'm still waiting for my trial.
That's right. Something.
I think they wanted to leave
Not
that
that
vague
particular line, but something like that.
I think they wanted to leave that vague on purpose.
Well, they could have given us months.
Yeah.
Like maybe not the Chiron, but as Alonso said, working it something into dialogue. Then look, Shandra, an American who's still now my favorite actress. Working
God.
Yeah.
And
So
her
great.
moment, almost every episode she has a moment, as I say every time, where she doesn't speak and she delivers a 10 performance. And her reaction to Helen Weiss's evisceration of Nas on the stand, where she can't even stand up to redirect, is fantastic. Her, you know,
And her questioning of her own witnesses was great too.
yeah, totally. But I love her little moments of silence, which are so hard and such a measure of what a great actor is. And she was fantastic in that, huh?
Two.
Right? Yeah. But then, like, we seem to get the impression that she was highly competent. She's clearly horribly bungling, and they sort of sacrificed her in the story to get us to this moment that allowed Stone to deliver the closing arguments, and they really destroyed her to get us to there. And I imagine, to me, there was a more sophisticated way to get there. I could forgive the making out, which seemed out of character, because at least she jumped back from it. But I mean, drug muling and then the just ignoring Stone and not checking with anyone else, of going ahead and
Putting him on the stand.
Putting a guy on the stand who's like, yeah, and then I fell asleep and I don't know what happened. And then I took the knife that has her blood on it. Like, yeah, don't put that guy on the stand. Don't do that. That's a terrible legal
No,
decision.
you're right. And it's funny because I don't know if you saw Southside with You yet, that opened this weekend, but there's a lot of dialogue in the film where Michelle Robinson is saying that she doesn't want to date Barack Obama because she is a woman of color in a white, like corporate law firm, and the last thing she wants to do is to be taken less seriously by dating the one black guy in the office. And so I would imagine that for somebody like Shandra, who's at this high-powered firm, being a woman of color would make her all the more cognizant of having to deliver like double, quadruple her peers in order to get ahead in that field. So that's why I found first the making out and then the drug muling. Like, come on, this woman's smarter than that.
And she knew her place. I don't mean her place in the put her down, but she knew her place in the world and how difficult her place in the world is, because when Glenn Headley used her because of her ethnicity, she was aware of it, and it bothered her. She got what was happening. She's not blind to those circumstances. And then to your point, I can't decide if this is a flaw. It might be a grave flaw, but I can be talked out of it, and I might be able to talk myself out of it. Lord knows I'll try. But Box, this great detective, to be fair to me, I may contradict myself very effectively. Box, getting around to looking at what happened to Andrea in the half hour before she got in Naz's cab during closing arguments, essentially. Like, he only got around to it then? Like, hey man, this is a long period of time went on if you're a good detective. So then we could argue maybe their point is maybe he's not a good detective. Maybe he latched into, as we know happens so often, this set of circumstances is so A+. It's so clear to me that this guy did it that I don't need to go back.
Yeah.
And then
I think he had a confirmation bias. He was just trying to only looking for the stuff that was going to
talk me out of
underpin what he already thought, which is that Naz did it.
I actually think you guys are being unfair to the show, and I'll tell you why. So I think Box is a really good detective, and it was gnawing at him the whole time. But as the show is making the point is that even good detectives, good prosecutors are like, well, we got to do the job, okay?
But
we got
missed,
this guy.
He missed the mortician too, though.
Yeah. So I know,
and Dwayne Reed.
No, but so that's really important. And I worked as a prosecutor for like half a second as an intern for 2 summers, 2 different places, right? And so, yeah, I don't even know if that's relevant to this conversation. But the point is, like, career is shockingly important to these people. Like, to the point where it really bothers you at your core how much, as you see in the news. I think my reading of having covered the news for 20 years affects us more. Like, you'd think, no, but you're not going to put away a guilty person, are you? Because it's slightly easier to.
You mean an innocent person.
I'm sorry, an innocent person, because it's like, but that's death row. No, you're not. Oh my God, you did it 20 times in a row. How could you have done that? But it's the banality of evil that I thought this show showed so well, because they were not evil. Because Box was a good detective, but he knows that this is where my prosecutorial experience is slightly more relevant, is that he knows if I go look at the mortician, if I go keep digging, I'm digging for the defense. Because everything I dig up is going to present other suspects. We're already going forward on this guy.
Yeah, but
I got to be done.
I'm sorry, because this is the thing Jack and I maybe argue about most. And I disagree with you only on 10%, but it's such a critical 10%. Because it's not the careerism. It is for many, no question. We see it all the time in prosecutors in Texas who are putting people on death row. You're like, it's inconceivable that you think you're this right this often, that you ignore clearly evidence to the contrary this often. But for Box and for Helen, and the way because Box doesn't want to golf, right? And he sits by himself alone at the bar. He's not interested in career. He's interested in getting it right, in winning. But that's a different thing than the second thing you said is totally right. Like, yeah, if I talk to this guy, it's going to get used by the defense. It'll undermine my case. And I know this guy did it, even if something gnaws at him. And Helen, she puts on the walking shoes. Like, this is where she is. She is not, she would turn down district attorney, a woman like Helen. Like, this is what she does. And so, but anything, they still are dedicated to their craft. And their dedication to their craft and their job is what obfuscates the truth. When she says in that moment of like, well, you're presenting compelling evidence against Paulo Costanzo, against the financial advisor, it's still 58-42 in favor of Nas, so we'll press on. But it's not careerism, right?
It's pragmatism.
We do disagree.
Pragmatism?
It's pragmatism and pragmatism and like all those things when she says to, we already saw it from her because we saw it when she said to
with the corner guy, like,
corner guy,
what do you want me to say?
What do you want me to say? And she's like, say the second thing. I like that better. And he could say either one with just as much passion, and that does not bother her in any way.
Yeah, no, so we do disagree a little bit. I think that she didn't think Nas did it at that point. She didn't know, right, when Box comes with the new evidence. She pressed on because it's too embarrassing to walk away from this case. And that's why and the show makes everyone compromise themselves. And she compromised herself when she said the cops have no other suspects, and Box gets up and leaves.
Yes,
right?
which is great and a great parallel to the...
Because she knows. That's a lie.
Yeah, but a great parallel to the mother walking out moment.
Totally, yeah.
You know, it's like
each side suffered a terribly
the jury gets to watch somebody do...
And Box may have thought, I'm going to do that because they had this damaging moment with the mother. I mean, clearly Box timed it. I mean,
totally.
Knew
exactly what he was doing.
And to her credit, obviously, I mean, she has a conscience. The prosecutors you described are conscience-free. She did. She was plagued. And right and then, without checking with her boss, anything at the end of the trial, she's like, so what are you going to do? And she's like, we're out of this one.
That's why she put her walking shoes on.
That's right, yeah.
No, and I don't know if we've mentioned it enough, but Jeannie Berlin was so fucking great on this. I mean, the performances are all really good. I love Glenn Hadley's one scene here. The way she just like, that pivot from like friendly to like, pack your fucking desk. Oh, God, but Jeannie Berlin is so great, so great.
Yeah, sorry, Tim, we keep cutting Tim off. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, everything you're saying is good. I'm just one more.
We're
voice.
Bullies. You're with three bullies.
And maybe what I want to say now is related to the conversation 10 minutes ago, but it was interesting to see how Box started the show with like, I'm 100%, this is the guy. And then you learn that the system is not, like, it's not who they think did it, it's who the odds are in favor of getting a conviction for. So it doesn't really matter what they think. And at that moment, you know, Box thinks something new and different. He's not 100%. In fact, he's way less than 100%. And all he can do in that moment is get up and leave to maybe cast the thinnest shadow of a doubt with the jury, because he can't present new evidence. He can't call witnesses. He's just a cop.
He could.
He's not a cop anymore.
He could, obviously, at some point before closing arguments are finished, say, or before the defense is rested, say to the defense, call me. I mean, he could
if he
undermine the
wanted
case.
to, he could have done. Like that's as Stone thought that Box left him the CD. He didn't. Of course, Freddy did. Right.
We don't know. I don't think we know.
No,
we see Freddy has it. Remember the
yeah, right. So we think he gave it to.
Yeah, no question, it's Freddy.
Which, in my mind, is just so that Turturro could deliver his like Emmy award-winning speech at that moment.
No, I don't think Freddy thinks it's going to get Shandra taken off. I think he thinks it's going to be a mistrial.
Yeah, Freddy knows that's a mistrial.
From a writer's room perspective.
From a writer's room
well,
perspective.
sure, yeah.
And
I love the judge, by the way. The scene in his chambers, and then the later, like, I don't like the word deadlocked. No.
That's Foreman. That's a ballsy Foreman. He's like, yeah, not going to happen, Judge.
So to Box there. First of all, Freddy is redeemed by sending that DVD and saying, even though he's a super bad guy who's the head of this criminal organization, and he would love to have Nas as a companion for a long time, he helps Nas anyway to try to get the mistrial.
Well, if there had been a mistrial, would that mean that Nas would be free, or that Nas would have to stay in jail while they restarted over the whole
also
thing?
It's double, because it might
maybe.
be. I mean, in fact, most likely, in most circumstances, prosecutors would have filed notice right then to refile the charges to keep him in prison, obviously, and then they could obviously, at a later date, choose not to. But
Which
she
also
made-
would fit into Freddy's agenda. I'm just wondering
Totally.
what his agenda is.
I understand,
To
but
free
but
Nas or to
he
keep him.
still
Right.
he still played he attempted to help Nas not go to prison for life right then.
And,
Yes.
besides which, you remember he gave him the right shirt and tie,
Yeah.
all the things that he actually had been helping him throughout. But I want to go
Although
back
he
to
did
Box.
give him a tattoo on the jury side.
Yeah, that's right. I want to go back to Box for one quick second because I think it's a really important character here. Because to me, the conflict that Box has in his head and all that long bar scene with the golf clubs, et cetera, is the conflict between the job and the profession. The job is get your criminal conviction rate up. Don't, like, all the other cops are like, why are you still here? Why do you care? Why do you care?
I won't even
We're not
answer-
supposed to care.
Guy
right?
wouldn't even answer a simple question on the guy's name.
because Box has always gotten on their skin because he actually cares to do the job.
That's right.
And so, or he takes it as a profession.
Right.
And the professional side of him is, oh, I know he didn't do it. It's gnawing at me. It's, God damn it. I'm going to go back and check the tape. Even though the job tells me, shut the hell up. We already got the guy.
Maybe he needed to quit the job to do that. Maybe.
Maybe that's a great symbolism there too. That's right.
But that was for us. Like, that didn't really have a whole lot, except for them choosing not to prosecute further at the end. That was for us, the audience. He didn't actually ever contribute to the freeing of Nas or to doing real justice, right?
No, he could have. That's right. And that's
Well,
why,
he does,
again,
he
it's
does
that.
go to Helen with what he knows. I
Well,
think, and
yeah.
that
Yeah,
makes
so
all the
he-
difference.
that's-
She
but
could've-
Like,
she
the
could've
whole
revived.
time, and maybe I'm just used to procedurals, the whole time I was waiting for
Sure,
him to
we
be
all were.
like,
Right.
yeah, that I figured out who the real guy is, so we need to get this evidence in the right, and he never does that.
The reason I brought up Freddy is because you're right. He could have. He could have put in a manila envelope, the pictures of that he has with on the beach with her and the financial advisor, a photocopy of the $300,000 to Stone. He could have done all that. But that's why this show was awesome.
Right, 'cause he doesn't-
because they did that balancing act.
Yeah.
Where Box is not that nice a guy, right?
also-
But he does have a conflict, and he's also not that bad a guy.
He also hates guys like Stone. I mean,
Yeah.
he sees
Yes.
guys like Stone's working against justice, right?
That's
like,
right.
You know, that guy's his enemy. That's why he's not going to help.
So yeah, he's not going to come sweeping in as the great warrior of justice, but he is going to plant just enough discord.
Right, but in a
to
sense
keep
that's-
this thing from being a cakewalk, and he succeeds in creating a deadlocked jury.
Let's before we go, real quick. Because so the heroes here in many ways are Box, Helen, and Stone. In
Yeah.
some ways, right?
They
And
keep the wheels going.
They keep the right, but I mean, and they're the professionals of
Yeah.
this, right? I mean, they have some sense of honor, and I think Freddy too, because even though Freddy is a
Yeah,
Freddy
Freddy's
only-
a hero.
Freddy only
Because
hurt-
otherwise Nas would have been a PD.
Fred only hurt other criminals, and Freddy has a rule, and Freddy's not going to kill an innocent guy, and but that said, like going back to the conversation I had last week, like so, this show, which is about sort of a system that massively has mistreated everyone, sort of in the system, potentially mistreated them, but many of those people minorities, young black men primarily, and brown men. And then sort of the idiots here are those people, and here's Chandra, who turns out is sacrificed to the altar of the good lawyers like Jonathan Stone. So I just like watching it from that point of view, since I had that exchange with a nice Twitter exchange with a Twitter follower last week.
So that happens.
Right? Yeah, it turns out it does. It's like I'm 1 for 178 now. And I was just like, well, okay. Like the black and brown people are all criminals and incompetent, and then there are these three sort of.
Oh, I see. No, I think that's unfair because I think Freddy's a good guy. Nas is to some degree redeemed, although you actually think less of him by the end than you did in the beginning when you thought he might have been a murderer.
He's certainly victimized by the system.
He's certainly victimized by it. And Helen, I am putting in the hero category barely because you said it. I wouldn't have initially. I think her continuing the case is really, really deplorable.
But she did. But that moment, as you know, that decision right then, without checking with her boss, I'm gonna let him go right now. That was a.
Also, yeah, of course, I know. That's why I think it's not a crazy thing to put her in the hero category. But the flip side is also she's got to share that evidence with the defense, the ones that Box brought her. She doesn't share that. She's got to wrap that case up. Because if that
that's
evidence comes out later, she's in some trouble.
There are a lot of these guys are all balancing. Nobody is standing up and being a true hero, because that would sacrifice your career, right? That would do it to that extent. To that extent, unquestionably, you're right. A lot is being written that we learned about Nas. We know that he's messed up now, but like the evidence of the 2 kids he hurt in high school, and we talked about this before. But I really think it's unfair because they suggest that it turns out clearly Rikers did something to him, but he wasn't perfect to begin with. But I think it's all on Rikers, because I think the ways that he wasn't perfect are insignificant. They are the ways that all of us aren't perfect. I mean, selling Adderall to make an extra couple of bucks to your friends does not even, I barely raises my suspicion about somebody.
No, nothing.
And being a young kid after 9/11 who went too far in hurting kids at school, you got in fights at school. I just don't think they weren't. It's all on Rikers to me. It's still pretty much all.
Okay.
That was a guy who was going to grow up, be a decent, good, contributory member of society, and got Rikered.
So that's really interesting, because of all the flaws you thought that you listed in the series, including Shandra, I actually don't really agree that much. I thought Shandra was not bumbling, but she was a rookie, and she acted like a rookie throughout. She was passionate. She liked Nas. So yada yada, right? But the one thing that I thought was a real fault was he got too hard too quick, as you mentioned, right, at Rikers. And it came across as not believable. So it's a slight flaw. But now that you outlined it in the way that you did, I thought maybe that was also intended. That what they're kind of trying to show you in this series is that context is everything. Like, if you grew up in this environment, you'd be this person. Okay, and if you grew up in that environment, you'd be that person. And if you worked in this system, you'd be person Z, right? And so they did that with Box and Helen and Stone, and now they're saying, now if you were in Rikers, you know, and then it makes me think that the series was even more perfect than I realized.
Because the financial advisor guy is certainly in the same situation. He's either going to make bail or get kid glove treatment in a way that somebody like Nas is never going to get.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see it go on, because there's a whole. Anyway, we got to go. It was great, though, and
I want to give one last shout out to Fred Elmes, who was the director of photography on this.
Beautiful show.
Who shot Blue Velvet and Synecdoche, New York, and is one of the greats, and did an amazing job.
Well, it's not his fault about Synecdoche.
I love that movie.
I know it. I say it deliberately to you and only you. Well, not only you. I know there are others, but that movie just made me feel dumb as a post.
That it did its job.
Okay, I want to leave it on this thought, because I love that you brought how they shot it in, because I mean, I thought that last episode was a masterpiece. I mean, I loved every second of it. Not just every second, I loved every shot of it. As he's walking out, and you're like, get out, quicker, let's go, don't dilly-dally, right?
Part of it is like, how many doors did he have to go through? How long was that process?
Which, by the way, makes you think, and it's not just the cinematography, or just, it's the director saying, we want him to go through 5 doors, right? Because that is what we're setting up. Everything was symbolic. Every shot was. And every shot was beautiful, even though it was super ugly, right? The surroundings were ugly. But I almost paused at every shot in that, like, last 10 minutes of that.
And when the gate opens and you wonder...
that would have driven me crazy.
When the gate...
I thought about it, though. I paused in my mind.
When the gate opens and you wonder, like, oh, shit, did none of his family show up? And then they do, and, like, yeah, there's a lot of that stuff.
How isolating is this whole process? I mean, in the hall, that great shot of... the parents are sitting alone together and not speaking. And Stone is sitting alone and not speaking. And Helen is sitting alone and not speaking to anyone. And Chandra is leaning against the wall and not speaking, knowing that her career is probably over. And this guy who she was probably falling in love with. And then they never look at each other, Chandra and Nas, in court. And then as soon as she says, we're not going to refile, and Stone says, you're free, she packs her bag, she walks out. Nope, not a word, nothing. She's gone.
Yeah.
Like, it's so isolating. There is no humanity.
And that Freddy makes it a point to not be around when Nas is leaving
There's
as well.
no humanity. Freddy's like, you're going to be free, you're gone, you can't look back. And I can't see you.
Yeah.
I can't have that sense of, look what I'm never going to get. Anyway, we got to go. But you're right. So many good. Who shot it?
Fred Elmes.
All right, there you go. Guys, final grades.
A+.
A.
I really wanted to say wrong and give a different grade like John McLaughlin, but those grades are correct. Right, an A. Bye-bye.